Hi, this is the second class on the laws of Purim this year, Tavshin Pei Gimel 23. And I guess we'll begin with a story, which is always good. It's like the Yerushalayim that comes before learning, right? So I want to tell you an unbelievable story. There is a person in Toronto who I once visited, very rich man, and he has this big business there. In one room, there are people working by tables with phones. When I saw him, it was before the computer age, so maybe today he has computers. It was a packed, gigantic room. Next room is just as big, but all it has is one long, fancy table and a number of fancy big chairs on one side and another big chair in the front of the table where he sits, and there's some cake and whiskey on the table with cups. And all day, poor people come in, or people that are collecting, whether it's for institutions, even if they're not poor, or whether it's poor people. And he says to them, make a bracha, have a drink, and I'll give you a check for whatever you're collecting for. But first, thank Hashem. So I had gone to him once for a charity issue. And before I could even make a bracha, I look at the wall, and there's one big picture of Reb Aaron Kotler, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, the great Reb Aaron Kotler, who founded the yeshiva in Lakewood, Beis Medrash Gavayim, and the other picture is the great holy tzaddik, the Kapitchin Rebbe Zecher Tzadik Levracha, Reb Avram Yeshua Heschel, who lived on Lower East Side, and at the end of his life he lived in Borough Park. Our family was very closely connected with him, and his father, generations prior to that, and generations prior to that, all the way back. And I say to him, what's your connection with Kapishins? So he says to me, as is known, the Kapishins Rebbe was, his love for fellow Jew was something indescribable, and he was busy day and night helping Yidden and helping organizations and yeshivas that had no connection with him at all. He was very big. And he says, my father, you think I'm rich? My father was much richer than me. We lived on Lower East Side, and my father was one of the people that helped the Kapitchin Rebbe with millions and millions of dollars in those days so that he could do his charitable mitzvahs. So I said, so tell me a story about the Kapitchin Rebbe's Chanukah. If your father was so close, then please tell me. So he says, I'll tell you a story. He says, look at me. I'm a rich man today, thank God. I have wonderful children. And I have a happy life. It wasn't always like this. This is my second marriage. My first marriage, I was married to a woman for, I forgot what he told me, a month or 6 months, a very short time. And it was horrible. I was a young person, and worse than that, my father felt very hurt because I had to divorce my first wife. So being that my father was so close with the Kapitchin Rebbe's Chanukah, and the Kapitchin Rebbe knew everything that was going on in heaven and earth, so he asked my father, how does it come that a person like me, who's giving you millions of dollars for charity, I should have to go through such a thing with my son? The Kapitchin Rebbe said to him, what happened by your son's wedding? Son's wedding was in Broadway Central. That was a very famous and fancy hotel those days in the late 40s, early 50s. And a bunch of collectors came to collect charity. After all, they heard this rich guy is making a wedding, so they all come to collect money. And it was below your dignity to have all these schnorrers standing outside collecting money or inside. After all, you're a rich person, you have rich friends, you have family. It's below you. So what did you do? You paid each collector $100 to go home and disappear. $100 in 1948, 1957 was a lot of money. It's not an exaggeration to say it had the worth of $1,000 today and maybe even more. So in heaven they said, the chaim, the beauty, the attractiveness of a Jewish wedding is the collectors. If there's no collectors, something's wrong somewhere. And that's why Nebuchadnezzar had to go through what you went through, or your son had to go through. And thank God since then, Baruch Hashem. Obviously, the son had a business where he was busy all day, handing out a lot of money to people, and the business ran by itself, so to say. And we will continue now with the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We are holding chapter 145, the laws of Purim. Paragraph 4. In honor of reading the Megillah, one should wear Shabbos clothes in the evening, and when returning from the synagogue, you should find the house brightly lit, the table set, and the beds made in honor of the reading of the Megillah, in honor of the holiday of Megillah, of Purim, just like Shabbos. In the evening, after the Shemona Esrei prayer, the full Kaddish with the Skabel is said, then the Megillah is read. After that goes Va'ata Kadosh. This verse is found in Psalms 22, verse 4, which refers to Esther the queen. It is said in verse 3, my God, I call, etc., which refers to the reading of the Megillah. And we find that in Tractate Megillah, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, every man must read the Megillah at night and repeat it in the daytime. We read it twice, for it is said, my God, I call by day, but you didn't answer me. And at night, I am not silent. Brings out the faith that Jewish people have in Hashem. Even when they're not answered, they continue praying to Hashem with great faith and joy. This is followed by the verse, you are the Holy One, etc. After that, the full Kaddish is said omitting to Skabel. If it is Shabbos night, Saturday night, in other words, we say Vihi Noam, Vata Kaddish, the full Kaddish, omitting to Skabel. V'yitin l'cha, for those who say V'yitin l'cha in Shul, we say Havdalah over a cup of wine and conclude with Aleinu. Five, it is customary to donate a coin equal to half of the standard monetary unit currently in use in the country before. In this country, in other words, we usually use half a dollar, some use a gold coin, a gold dollar. Before Purim, as a reminder of the half a shekel, the Jews used to give in Adar to buy the communal offerings in the temple in the Beis HaMikdash. It is customary to give 3 half shekels, because in Parshas Kisisa, which is the reading that we're going to do in 3 weeks, the word teruma, an offering, is mentioned 3 times. These coins are given in the evening before the reading of the Megillah, and then distributed to the poor. A minor is exempt from giving the half shekel, but if his father once contributed for him, it remains his obligation for life. According to some authorities, a 13-year-old boy must give a half shekel, while others hold that he's exempt until he reaches the age of 20, which was the age that was given in the times of the temple and times of the Beis Hamikdash. On Purim, number 6, paragraph 6. On Purim, in the Shmona Esrei of Mariv, the night before, Shachos in the morning, and Mincha during the afternoon, we recite the Ala Nisim. If you forgot to say it, the same halacha applies as on Chanukah, which is in chapter 139, paragraph 21, and over there it says, during the 8 days of Chanukah, we say the Shmona Esrei, in the Shmona Esrei, the Ala Nisim. If you forgot to say it and become aware of it before you said the name of Hashem in the bracha Hatov Shimcha, that's the next blessing of the Shmona Esrei, you should turn back and start Ala Nisim. But if you became aware of it after you said Hashem's name, you should conclude the bracha and not turn back to Ala Nisim. Concerning Berachas HaMazon, the grace of the meals, that's brought down in chapter 44, where it says as follows: on Chanukah and Purim, the prayer of Ala Nisim is added. In the second blessing of grace, Noidelecha, a person who forgot to make this addition and did not remember until after he recited Hashem's name at the conclusion of the blessing, need not go back and recite the Ala Nisim. Nevertheless, in the midst of the Harachman prayers, there's a special Harachman to say, Harachman Yasa Lanu Nisim, should do with us miracles as you've done those days, and then there's Bimei Matisyo, which is said on Chanukah, and Bimei Mordechai, which is said on Purim. Let's see some of the other commentaries. So the David, Shalos Tshuvos David, he repeated some of what he says as far as Purim is concerned. Is it allowed for a man to put on a wig of a woman on Purim so it should look like he has long hair? Is this considered like a man wearing women's clothes, which is prohibited? And David says it is considered and it's not allowed to be done. See Orach Chaim Tafresh Sadik Vav in the Ramah, the Mishnah Berurah Sifkat and Lamed. Would it be permissible to perform the mitzvah of presents for the poor, Matanas Levyanim, during paying out a loan that the poor man had on Purim? So he says no. Since the poor man, to do the mitzvah of Matanas Levyanim, the poor man has to receive something, whether it's money or worth of money, so that he could use it to buy a Sudas Purim, the Purim meal, and that's not going to help him for that. Can one do the mitzvah of Matanis of Yonim the night of Purim? Nope. Is there a responsibility on the woman also to give machzis hashekel that we just learned about? No. What's the Jewish law as far as a Megillah that has pictures on it, whether it's on the sides or on the bottom, or it has crowns on the top, by Hamelach? So the answer is as follows. The Megillah is kosher, but it's not Muhadaris. It's not extra special the way it should be. The crowns on top of the word Hamelach, the king, that is Muhada, that is okay, and it's even something nice, because it adds to the beauty of the writing of the Megillah. However, the pictures go into the level of Kol HaMoisef Gareya, someone that adds is not praised. It's not such a great idea, because it doesn't really belong there. Okay. If while reading the Megillah, a person's thoughts start floating to other things, but then he reads it from his own Chumash, from the published Chumash that he has, the Bible that he has, and catches up to the one who's reading the Megillah, is that fine? Yes, it is fine. One didn't hear one word of the Megillah, is it okay to read it from a Chumash, as we just said? Yes, that's allowed. Let's see. Yishiyarim Mitziyanim Ba'alacha. Right? Yeah. We were holding by one. We started with that one should dress Shabbos clothes the night of Purim. A lot of people go disguised already with their Purim clothes. Anyway, when it comes to shul, when he comes home from shul, there should be candles on the table, and the table should be set like for Shabbos, and the beds should be made nicely like Shabbos. Okay, go further. Okay, here it is. Okay, we give the machzah shekel, the hair for shekel, right? So actually, the Ramah in Shulchan Aruch says that it should be as we mentioned. However, we could even start giving from Rosh Chodesh Adar, from the beginning of the new months, as it says in the Mishnah in Shkolim, first chapter, first Mishnah, that it was done like that in the times of the temple, in the times of the Beis HaMikdash. However, the custom became throughout the exile after the Beis HaMikdash, like our days, that it's given before the Megillah. Now, the Rambam in his Pirush HaMishnayos, not in his book, but in his interpretation on the Mishnah, and also the Tosfos Yontif, in that Mishnah, in the first chapter of Megillah, in the first chapter of Megillah, not Shkolim, third Mishnah, they both write as follows. Also, the Matanis of Yonim, not only there for shekel, but the presents for the poor could be given not from the beginning of the month, but from the 11th day of Adar. So if that be the case, then for sure the hair for shekel could be done as well. When Purim comes out on a Saturday night, then some people give it before Shabbos, and others wait till the morning of Purim because it should be still connected to the thing of Purim, to the mitzvahs of Purim. We'll stop now.